Looking forward to this conversation, this visit this morning. Alongside Lance Talbert, I'm Richard Cross. We welcome in Senator Josh Harkins. He represents District 20, Senate Finance Committee Chair, and he has been slap dab in the middle of tax conversation for probably longer than he would like to be. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Richard. How are you?
Doing well. Doing well.
Good.
I appreciate some of your time this morning. I know you've talked about this a lot publicly and privately, and a lot of work has gone into this Senate plan. I'll start out by asking you what I was just kind of wondering aloud, the timing of this. The House rolled out HB1 right out of the gate. We knew, I don't think it was a secret that was their priority, the Speaker's priority, the Governor's priority. The Senate has taken a little while longer. Was that because you wanted to see what the House was going to roll out and react to it? Were you caught flat-footed, or was this the plan all along to take a little while?
No, I mean, the process of legislation, I mean, you have deadlines of filing bills, you have later deadlines for appropriation and revenue bills. This being a revenue bill, the deadline to get it off the floor is February 26th, I believe. So as a legislator, you can file a bill up to the 25th if you wanted to and have it go through committee and off the floor. So there's not really the deadline like a general bill is. So I mean, we talked about taxes in the off session all through November, December. We started talking. I mean, I kind of theorized how we want to try to propose tax cuts. You look at we were looking at revenues. We came in $100 and something million below estimates in December, and so that all those things go into.
And that's about the halfway point. December's about the halfway point in the fiscal year.
The end of December is the halfway point. We were below revenue estimates. So you take into consideration a lot of factors when you're trying to formulate how you're going to cut taxes into the future. Because, the one thing you don't want to do, and everybody uses Kansas as an example, but there are a lot of reasons around Kansas.
The poor sunflower state.
Yeah, why they kind of messed up in their theory or in their implementation of their tax cut. Because how you implement it matters, and the amount you cut, the revenue that you're foregoing, and trying to remain responsible and do the things that government's supposed to do. It's a delicate balancing. I'm not, fortunately, I mean, I have to look at both sides of the coin. I'm not just a tax cut in a silo legislator. I also have to consider all the other things that we're doing on the revenue side, and also as an appropriator. Senator Hobson works on the other side of the coin and spending the money, and there are things that people expect out of us. People expect us to have corrections, places for criminals to go. People expect us to have mental health fixed in our state, child protective services. I mean, there's a federal lawsuit. There's things that we have to do. We have to perform. Education, for instance. I mean, we made a huge commitment last year in redoing our education formula, and committed another $270 million. And there's also about a $40 million, price tag to that every year going forward for the foreseeable future. So, I mean, making sure you can live up to the expectations that you've put on yourself and what our constituents.
Wait, is that $40 million additional?
Additional.
So 270 turns into 310, which turns into 350?
Correct.
Or there was an initial 270 and then it's 40, 40, 40 after that?
Correct. There's an additional implementation of monies year over year. So that plan the funding formula had some escalators in it that we have to take into account and plan for. Now, at a certain time in the future, there'll be a kind of a baseline will be over with, and you'll reassess the formula and the number of students and all that, and it may come down a little bit depending on the population of the students.
Okay.
But it's student focused, so if more students come in, more money's going into education.
So the cost a year ago on that was $270 million.
Correct.
This year's cost, if you go another 40, goes up to 310, 350, 390, et cetera.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was understanding that the right way. Not that it was a one-time 270 and then an additional 40 deal. Each year.
It's
so an escalator there.
It's an escalator involved in that. And so you look at that. You're also watching the revenues come into the state. I mean, you go back to 2020 in February, we were clicking along, and I think we were about 240 million above estimates.
Right.
And back then, I remember prior years when Senator Clark was appropriation chairman, he'd be like, "Hey man, we got $6 million left over at the end of the year." To be up
Let's throw a party.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, oh my God, budget's good. We're going to have a little bit extra money to work on some projects, and that was, $240 million up was, excuse me, was incredible. And all of a sudden, COVID happens. The economy is shut down. We go from being up 240 to being down 60 million in about a month and a half, and so that we paused the session. We came back in later. We cut budgets across the board about 5%. We even cut education. We dipped into the rainy day fund, and so we've dug out of that. But digging out of that, in the process of that, we've had all the federal money that came in, and I think it was about $33 billion extra money over and above what the federal government normally sends down to supplement our budget.
Right.
And part of it went to individuals. $12 billion of it went straight to the citizens of our state through PPP, EIDL, disaster assistance, unemployment compensation when people were paid to basically stay at home and not go to work because they were getting more money to do that. So it kind of changed our revenue structure, and we saw just huge leaps in sales tax and use tax collection. People couldn't go anywhere, so they were either redoing their house, buying furniture, bought a car, built a man cave, whatever. Yeah. And so it's kind of, we've been living on a sugar high for the last couple of years, and that's why you see all these large excesses. And so what we've done is we've taken that and we've paid off debt. We've paid for cash for projects instead of borrowing money. We're going to be down about $1 billion in debt over the last 4 years, I guess, from 4.6 billion to about 3.6 after this year. We've taken steps to mitigate problems we've had. We've invested back into our infrastructure. We probably put $1 billion into MDOT of those excess funds. Right. And so as you're cutting taxes, you're basically doing away with your excess funds, and you're going to be living really lean on your appropriations.
So one of the things that in the House plan, it appears to me that they are banking on is continued growth for Mississippi's economy. They've pointed to 2% growth roughly year over year historically, and that with continued economic development and overall revenue growth, that covers the cost of the tax decreases, the tax reform, the income tax reduction. Are you not as confident about that growth, or is it that you simply see more expenses coming on board than maybe we're prepared to handle to go along with a decrease in revenue because of tax reduction?
Well, I think it's a little of both. I mean, I try to put my business hat on. I'm a small business owner in real estate and construction, and I've seen what the economy's done. We've had great years where you clip along and everything's going great, and then you've had years where there's been kind of a mild recession or slower economy, and so that hits government just like it hits the citizen. I mean, inflation hits the government. Services that we pay for cost more year over year. So I think it's a little of both. It's cautious. You look across the country, 41 states have income tax. Nobody has just set their income tax cut off to sale and just eliminated it. People have taken a bite of the apple and digested it, and then taken another bite of the apple and moved down.
So one of the things that Lieutenant Governor Hosemann has said to me on multiple occasions is we want to continue to work toward the elimination of the income tax, but it hasn't seemed as if he wanted to codify that, right? That where it was completely locked in and you didn't have a chance to look in and press pause if you needed to. Is that something that Mississippians can trust to say, okay, this Senate plan takes us down to 2.99% with an eye on going farther than that? There's just no way to guarantee it.
Well, I think once you get outside, 4 or 5 years, you really don't know what the economy is going to do. You can't predict the future, but you can try to model what your situation looks like right now, a snapshot of now going into 2 or 3 years, and you say, okay, we just made a huge investment in education. Well, I can tell you, year in, year out, we get hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of requests over and above what we're currently doing. Yeah. But if you look at corrections, what was the problem with corrections? We had too few guards. We weren't paying them enough. The solution to a lot of the problems, unfortunately, in certain circumstances, is more money. You have to put in more money to pay guards to work at Parchman, to work in at different facilities across the state. You have to, inmate medical has gone up. I mean, these are costs that are not really, something that you just want to throw money at. But, I mean,
you don't really have a choice.
Yeah, you don't have a choice. I mean, if you have a better solution, I'm all ears. I'm looking to hear for it. I'm looking to hear from you.
I don't want to pay a higher electric rate for my home, but I still got to have electricity.
I met with a community college the other day. Their insurance on their properties of the community college has gone up 67% over the last 3 years. Yeah. What, do you not pay your insurance? Your insurance to cover your property? No, you have to.
So when we come back, we'll I'm assuming you got a few more minutes to
I'm here.
visit.
I'm here with you.
Sounds good. Visiting with Senator Josh Harkins. We will explore whether or not there is room for negotiation between the House and the Senate, and we'll also look at some of the specifics in the Senate bill that are out there. I want to specifically talk about the gas tax, excise versus sales tax, which makes more sense. And again, as I said earlier, you're going to disagree with me. I don't think the excise tax goes quite far enough on this Senate plan. We'll talk about that coming up next. Gallo Radio Show, SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm, SuperTalk TV. We'll also try to grab some of your questions on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. We're back right after this. Back to you, Gallo Radio Show, Thursday morning, weekend just around the corner. Would imagine that that's good news for all of the members of the legislature. Get a little break for a couple of days. Haven't quite gotten to that time where you guys have to work through the weekend.
Not yet, but it's it feels like it.
It is on
lately.
the horizon.
Yep.
It is on the horizon. Certainly long days right now. Josh Harkins, Senator, represents District 20. He's chair of the Senate Finance Committee. And as a result, has had tax reform on his plate. So we were talking earlier about some of the differences between the House plan and the Senate plan. And I think it's probably pretty important to go through some of those and look. Let's start, if you don't mind, with the gas tax.
Okay.
The House proposal was a 5% sales tax on gas. And I think the simplest way to describe that is if you spend $100 at the pump, your bill is going to be $105. Just a flat 5% sales tax on the $100 that you spent, whereas the Senate side is the excise tax, which kind of means the tax is already baked into the final price you pay. So if you see $2.89 at the pump, you're paying $2.89 a gallon at the pump. Just
correct.
Maybe as a simple way. 9 cents is the proposed increase in the Senate bill, roughly 9 cents, in addition to the 18.4 right now. Did you go far enough with the 9 cents?
Well, it's also indexed, which I think people would say. All right, so in '87, when the '87 plan came out, the legislature raised the gas tax from 7 cents to 18.4 cents.
Okay.
But they didn't index it.
It hasn't changed since then.
Hasn't changed since then. It hasn't taken into account for inflation, anything. And what indexing would have done would have incrementally raised it over time, where we probably wouldn't be in this position where we are now.
Okay.
And I think it's one of those things. It's part of legislating that, I think you can ask just about every legislator that's been that's served in the position that, hindsight is 20/20. There's things that they wish they would have done a little different about some bills, that they would have tweaked or changed, and I think that's probably one of them that they wish they would have done in '87 that would have probably eliminated a lot of the heartache we have now and would have solved a lot of the problems over the years.
So what's the indexing factor?
Well, it basically has a baseline. There's a formula that we'll use. We're working on that, but it basically just takes the cost of the price of gas into consideration, inflation, what's going on, and so it may tweak it up, 0.5 of a cent or 0.6 of a cent over a 2-year period, but it indexes it so as inflation continues to impact us, the gas tax will rise incrementally with it.
Is there a scenario where it can go down as part of an index?
No.
I mean, if the price of gas were to significantly go down, could the
No.
Okay. Tax only goes up.
It only goes up.
It's not what anybody wants to hear.
It's not what you want to hear, but
Yeah.
the reality is it's not going to cost the cost of construction for roads and bridges is not going down.
That's true.
If it does, the legislature can act and can change that. I mean, that's the great thing about what we do is we come in every year. We can vote to lower the tax, which is what we've done in a lot of situations. But as it relates to road and infrastructure, we've been subsidizing it out of sales and income tax and everything else, and you're eliminating a lot of that going forward. So you're going to have to find other revenue sources to complete projects. I mean, you look at what we've done in the last 3 years. We put about $1 billion of excess funds into MDOT. Highway 7 going to Oxford, I-55, in DeSoto County, Highway 15. I mean, there's projects like that all over the state that are in desperate need. And, the transportation commissioner, I talked to him the other day, and he said, we've never been able to implement a 3-year plan because we don't have the funds. We have to keep pushing the projects back. And so I think he said with this money, we will be able to implement a 3-year plan.
Okay, so in terms of real dollars, do we know roughly how many gallons of gas?
212 million.
All right, so 212 million a year. Mm-hmm. Currently, MDOT gets 80 million, or the first 80 million from
the lottery.
Does that go away?
No, that plan I think still is in effect till 2028 is when the sunshine.
Okay, so through at least 2028, it would equate to 212 million plus the 80 million that they're getting right now. Mm-hmm. Does the current 18.4 cents excise go? Is that earmarked directly for MDOT?
Yes, it does not. The legislature does not spend that money on anything other than it goes directly to MDOT, and MDOT appropriates that through all their programs.
And so how much does that current 18.4 cent excise tax represent for MDOT?
Oh, Richard, I don't have that number in front of me.
I mean, I guess if we're just kind of playing with the math, it would be what, 425 million, give or take?
Yeah, it may be a little more.
If the 9 cents is 212 million,
yeah,
then in the ballpark.
In the ballpark.
So that takes them to about a $600 million annual budget that they can count on.
Plus, yes, that they can count on. They can plan on. It's going to be there. But, who knows what the price of gas does in the future. If it goes sky high, if there's a problem and gas goes to $4 or $5 a gallon, the excise tax is still the same.
Sure.
If it drops to $1.85, which is where it was when Trump was president, I believe, it's still the same.
Yeah. On the sales tax front, the House plan, as part of eliminating income tax, is increasing the sales tax by 1.5 cents. There is no sales tax increase here. To me, the biggest concern with the sales tax increase was that it appears, at least, and maybe there's language that I'm not aware of, that this would affect businesses in Mississippi, but it would not affect internet-based businesses in Mississippi. Yeah. Is that accurate?
Internet tax is what's referred to as use tax, and
okay.
I don't believe it changes the use tax. I think it's just a general sales tax rate.
Did that
7%.
have anything to do with the Amazon deal? Was there any sort of a guarantee put in place that use tax would not be raised?
I don't know.
Part of that economic development project?
I'm not aware. I don't know. You'd have to ask Chairman Lamar. I'm not sure.
I just was curious about that because it seems odd that you wouldn't apply the same tax structure to companies not based in Mississippi who are doing business here.
Yeah, I understand.
The grocery tax, Senate plan takes it down to 5%, but does so almost immediately. That happens this year. The grocery tax goes to 4% on the House plan, but that is over an extended period of time.
Yes. We tried to in our plan, we tried to give immediate tax relief in the first year and every year going forward. And so lowering the grocery tax from 7% to 5% is about $127 million price tag.
Okay.
And that would give a little bit of relief on the grocery front. Everybody is going to the grocery store. That's where they feel it. And it provides some relief there, but it also takes into account the income tax cut in the same year of 25 basis points. Together, you're looking at probably $220-something million tax cut in the first year. The actual net effect is about $158 million when you take into account the gas. But it's an immediate tax cut the first year, the second year, the third year, and the fourth year.
At about that rate annually, about $200 million a year?
Well, it's in the first year because you're lowering the income tax and you're lowering the grocery tax. It's a bigger hit the first year. The second year is just a lowering of the income tax. Third year is a lowering of the income tax.
At a quarter point per year.
At a quarter point per year, which is about $100 million, a little over $100 million a year in that. But you're raising the gas tax, offsetting it about $70 million a year. It's a little over $70 million a year.
So the big, at its core, the House plan is a more aggressive, larger tax cut plan than the Senate plan is, but on the Senate side, you believe that this is a more responsible, more conservative plan that's better for the long-term health of Mississippi?
Well, it's just measured. I mean, nothing prevents us from coming back in 3 years and saying, hey, our economy is just doing wonderful. We've got excess revenue still. We've got room to cut taxes again. And we've demonstrated in the past that we've done that. I mean, our 2016 tax cut was over a 10-year period. If you remember, in 2016, our first income tax cut was we eliminated the 3% bracket, which was about $150 million, and we did it over 3 years. Now we're taking $100 million a year out in this plan for 4 years in a row. So, we also eliminated the franchise tax on businesses. I mean, we've not just addressed the personal income side of the ledger. We've also looked at businesses. I mean, our businesses have been out there. We tried to eliminate the inventory tax. We didn't really eliminate the inventory tax. We made you pay it at the local level, but we gave you a credit on your income tax on the state level to make up for it. When you eliminate the income tax, that changes for LLCs. If you look at software as a service, businesses were worried about the sales tax on software as a service because it came out with a ruling that they're going to charge sales tax on it. Their businesses that spend huge amounts of money on software as a service. We eliminated that. So we've taken care of the business side and we've taken care of the personal side, but managing both of them, full expensing for businesses that invest in equipment in their business. We did that last year. So we are juggling both sides of this tax cut discussion, doing it responsibly while still maintaining an investment in education and all the things and trying to take care of the services that citizens expect us to provide.
We will wrap the conversation up with Senator Josh Harkins on the other side of this timeout as we finish up things in the 7 o'clock hour of the Gallo Radio Show. Is there room for debate? Is there room for compromise? Is there a middle ground between these two plans from the Senate and the House? And what about PERS? We know that PERS is part of the House plan. That is not part of the Senate plan. Is that a separate conversation, a separate bill that's got to be taken up? We'll do that when we come back. Gallo Radio Show, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Back with you, Gallo Radio Show, wrapping up the 7 o'clock hour. We appreciate you joining us this morning, and we appreciate the time of Josh Harkins, the senator from District 20, Rankin County. Just quickly, because
Richard,
people
you got a lot of Rankin County in this studio here. OLT.
Yeah.
I was telling him normally.
I was trying to decide if I had a response to that, or I was just going to kind of just let that slide, just let that float out there.
We don't get to see the Charger helmet behind you when you have a guest, but I was explaining to him that you used to spin it around a little bit yourself. So
hold on a second, I can reach that.
Yeah, you got to get it, man. It's Dan Fouts era. Look at this thing, man. It's great.
There you go. We got the old Oxford Charger.
There you
I
go.
don't think that'll still fit on my head.
With hair like that,
Nice.
man. Come on.
Jeez.
Look.
I don't think I'll get it off now at this point.
Lance and I played Little League baseball
great
together.
We played every sport together until we went to college. And
Lance was that size as a 9-year-old.
Yeah. I was gigante.
Throwing heaters.
Yeah, I got the old green dot here. If you remember those days from football.
Yeah, that has the air in it. You'd put didn't you put the little thing in it and pump it up like you would your shoes?
Yes, and then when they would get a leak in them, inevitably they came out and those turned into like cones.
Yeah.
Like we had to run drills around them on the field, and those were cone markers. So.
Yeah, that was back in the day when you had coaches that smoked on the field and were Copenhagen
tight
everywhere.
Bike shorts,
yeah.
Rest in peace, Coach Wade.
Yeah, you got it, buddy.
Let's try and squeeze in a couple of things before we wrap out. This gas tax, people going, yeah, but what about electric cars?
Electric cars, when they pay for their tag, there's a fee that takes that in consideration. Okay. Electric cars are heavy, just like gas cars. They ride on the roads. They do the same thing that gas cars do, and they should not be exempt from paying for the maintenance on the roads.
Why no PERS in this bill? That's something the House bill had in it. Is it too big of an issue to put into a bill that kind of muddies the water here?
Well, you can determine in the appropriations process how much you want to put in there. That's just one of the things that we get to discuss in the appropriation process, that we can dedicate money to PERS year in, year out. We can see how PERS is performing. This past year, I think they had 11% return. We can continue to appropriate money to PERS, and there are options available.
Is that a dedicated revenue stream from somewhere, or is that general fund money
Just
based on what's available and what they need?
What's the money? It's general fund money. Anything in the appropriation process is general fund money. You also have one-time money that at the end of the session when you get done and there's $100 million, $50 million, $80 million, whatever is left over, you can determine you have it. It goes. Half of it would go to the rainy day fund. That's another part of this whole story that I think we haven't discussed is we passed a bill to raise our rainy day fund up from 10% to 15%, which
of the budget.
Of the budget, yes, and so that would help give us a cushion in trying to.
So that's about $1 billion.
No, it's a couple. Taking it up to well, yeah. At the end of the day, when you do your total, but to add another $300 million into the rainy day fund would make it at that 15% mark.
Okay.
But yeah, that would be about $1 billion that we'd have. Some states looking around, a lot of other states have 15, 18, 20% in their rainy day fund, and 10%. Look, when I started, I think we were around $70 million in a rainy day fund, and so we've increased that. I think we're right around $700 million right now, close to $700 million.
On the PERS thing, doing it on an annual basis as needed, is that putting a Band-Aid on a problem that really needs a hip replacement?
Well, I mean, it needs more than a hip replacement. It needs a knee, a hip, an elbow, and maybe a shoulder, a rotator cuff. It's going to take a long time. This is not something that's going to be solved overnight. It's going to be decades of grappling with PERS, and I think we took a good step yesterday in passing a fifth tier that's going to take new employees into a new plan so that you can
get more 401k like.
Yes, it's a hybrid, and it's part DC, part DB, which part defined benefit, part defined contribution. But the way you set that up is to make it where the money that goes into that program is sufficient enough to supply the monies needed in the future for that retirement. And so we'll still have to maintain this 19 and a half.
Retirement, not to fund all of the existing. So it's not a Ponzi scheme.
No,
it's there to cover your retirement.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And that's a novel idea, I know.
A minute and a half left. Probably not enough time to really get into this. In terms of room for negotiation, obviously, the Senate feels good about its bill. The House spent a lot of time working on its bill and feels good about that. Is there room to come to the table and meet and come to an agreement that ultimately is good for the people of Mississippi?
I think we always, we do that. Sometimes it gets publicized and it makes it look like it's worse than it really is. I think we have done that year in, year out. As long as I've been here, there's been
sometimes it's not as publicly as bad as it actually is behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. And look, that's the way it should be. You shouldn't have to err. I think we all conduct ourselves out. I realize what the House is doing. The House realizes what we're doing. We're trying to but at least we're all pulling in the same general directions. We can both have the same goal, but have two different paths to get there. And we're going to keep working with the House on this and a whole host of issues through the session.
Josh, really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate you having me in. Be happy to come back again and talk about it.
And that'll be good. Senator Josh Harkins, District 20, Rankin County. I didn't see a Northwest Rankin helmet. I saw an Oxford Chargers helmet, though. Take a time out. We got more coming up. 8 o'clock hour just around the corner. Gallo Radio Show. The news is next.